Consulting the rules of composition before taking a photograph is like consulting the laws of gravity before going for a walk.
Composition is the strongest way of seeing. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 188 for the end of July. And boy, am I sweating. It's sweating. I must have lost. Well, look, first, before I get into that, first news is if I sound a little weird, which I may or may not, I can't tell. I got COVID last Saturday.
And that's not the first time.
And it's not the first time. No, it's not the first time. I was actually, the quick story, if I may, is I was filming Celebrate Brooklyn, which is a festival of music that happens in Prospect Park every summer. Mm-hmm. And it's every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday and Saturday they'll have a concert in the park in this band shell. And so I was filming it on Friday night, and it was kind of like a chill concert. It wasn't too exciting. I mean, it was kind of this sort of ambient music, or and then there was a orchestra and stuff like that playing doing a riff on the Fourth Seasons, which was actually really good. Perfectly normal night. Right? Saturday, I was going to have another shoot date, and I'm out photographing in the morning. And by the way, I got noticed on the street by someone who says, "Are you that photographer who posts in the Facebook groups?"
Wow!
Because I was taking pictures of all these at a 99-cent store, all these shoes in bins, and I'm starting to play with on-camera flash. I'll talk about that at some other point, but. This couple stopped, and the woman says, "Are you that photographer who posts stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah," and we were talking, and she talked for a while. She's showing me her pictures, which were really good. I had, Instagram and stuff like that. And anyway, I did my normal morning routine, and I got home, and then suddenly I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Like it felt off, and I was like, it feels like I've got a fever. You know that feeling?
Yeah.
There's your body aches, but I didn't feel bad. I just felt like if I have a fever, I go, okay, so that's odd. And I took it's 99.1. I was like, okay, where is that coming from? And I was like, all right, well, I go into the closet, and every time I have a fever, I was like, let me take a COVID test. And damn it, for the first time that I've taken a COVID test, those two little stripes popped up, and I was like, oh man. And I was like, this, okay, now what? And then I had that shoot that night, and I had to contact my producer, and I was really apologetic. Mm-hmm. And then I also realized that the day before at the concert, I was shaking people's hands, and I might have hugged a couple of people, and and I was really scared because, not scared, but I just I don't really want anybody to catch this. Mm-hmm. And I talked to the producer, and I was like, look, I'm really, really sorry. She's like, don't worry about it. And it's like, just tell everybody, that, I was in contact with. But then I realized I met these people on the street too, and I was very close physically to them. And so the only way I thought to contact this person, I didn't have their name, was I put up a picture in the Facebook group. I took some pictures while I was walking around, and let me put up a picture there, and hopefully she'll see it, and contact me just to say, oh, here's our contact information. And she did. And I told her, hey, you know what? I have COVID. I hope I didn't pass it to you and your husband, and just please be careful and take care of yourselves. Anyway, Saturday was a bummer. It got worse and worse and worse, and Sunday was bad. And I ended up getting onto that antiviral or whatever it is, Paxlovid, and I started taking those. And actually, that seemed to have worked. I mean, the symptoms, I haven't tested myself. I mean, I know I'm supposed to wait 10 days anyway, so to see if, after 10 days, I'm probably pretty safe to go out. I don't want to go out anyway wearing a mask because it's 9,000 degrees outside.
Yeah.
But so we're recording a little bit later in the week than we would have because I was not feeling so well. And so if I'm a little loopy or brain foggy, that's my excuse.
Okay.
This time I've actually got an excuse. So yeah, this is my second bout with COVID. First one I won't talk about because that was a bloody nightmare. Mm-hmm. This one's like a walk in the park compared to that. But that it's still out there, and holy heck, like I don't know where I got it because I don't really spend a lot of time with people, and I didn't get it at the concert because I'd already had I guess I'd already had the symptoms. Mm-hmm. So I must have gotten it a few days before that, but I can't figure out where. I mean, I could have I'm in a building with lots of people. Maybe I just touched something, and
Right.
So anyhow, I happen to be doing okay now, which is why we're able to record. So
Good.
Yay for me. Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, me too. So we'll just and now I got time to edit, do all this stuff.
That's right.
Sorry, I might cough a little bit too. If I laugh, that's what I'm going to do is cough a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's my little bit of personal news. What else? I did I tell you? I can't remember if we talked about it here, but I made a second zine.
Well, I knew that you were working on it, and
you knew you were working on it, but I don't know if I talked about it here.
I saw some of the work that was going into it.
Yeah, I did a second one for the same theme with the neighborhood stuff, and the name was called 11218. Mm-hmm. Did I talk about that on the show before?
I don't
doing
think
the first one.
Oh, I know we had talked about the first one. I don't remember if we talked about the second one.
I don't think we talked about the second one. I did that very quick, and I got them, and they look fantastic. By the way, I mean we don't get paid by Blurb or anything after. But if anybody, if you want to print something, damn it, go to Blurb.
Yeah,
it's the easiest. Their software Bookwrite. It's so easy to work with. It's not really the best. It's a little clunky, but once you figure it out, it's really good.
If you're working without a template or you're just banging something together, Bookwrite is just fine.
Yeah, it is fine. They do give you a lot of options for setting things up. It's just it's kind of, it needs updating, but it's totally workable. It's fine, and I laid the book out, the magazine out. Excuse me, like in I don't know. I can't remember. I did it pretty quickly, and I was thoughtful about it. The results I got back, though, I mean, the cover, I was a little worried about the cover, in terms of, because it's a color shot, but it's kind of monochromatic, and they nailed it. And just the insides, the printing in general, the blacks are really nice. I mean, I can't say, this is why you and Mark,
yeah. Well, we also we were treated by customer service as well. And you have a story about that too on the first one, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I had talked about it here, but I'll mention it again since when I did my first zine and got it back, there was a printing error on it. And I think I received it on a Saturday, and I emailed them figuring, okay, well, Monday morning they'll get the email saying, there's been a problem with my printing. I literally got a response 2 minutes after I sent the email to Blurb, and they were already creating the order and printing the replacement copy to send me.
Yeah.
So but even in general, and I talked about, I don't know if I talked about it here, but I also put together my book, like a little booklet about the trees of Greenwood, which I've talked about on the show before. Mm-hmm. I finally got around to making the photo book version of it, which is actually more expensive than the zine. I'm going to talk about this, but the Pillars of Greenwood, and it's like a 20-page photo book, soft cover, and it's all black and white. And without even doing what you guys did with dealing with customer service, because you're doing the big print run and maintaining, a standard.
Make sure there was no color cast. Yeah,
no color cast, but even just this, I did 2 copies of this. The black and white was fantastic. So. Anyway, this is sort of a long way of saying that as I'm doing more of these, I want to do more of them because they're not expensive. The zine is totally not expensive. 32-page zine, photo zine, put together. It was less than, it's like $9.20 per copy. I mean, that's almost like a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
The Pillars of Greenwood was a photo book and was a little bit more money, which I'm realizing it's not much bigger than the zine.
Yeah.
It's thinner than the zine and it costs more. But anyway, regardless, the price is right. And then I've got this thing that's in the world, in our reality now. It's not just stuff that's on a screen. So anyway, yeah, I did those. And I did send a copy of the Pillars of Greenwood to Greenwood, but we'll talk about that at some other point because we have a lot of other stuff to do. But anyway, it was really exciting to get these. I bought a few copies of them, so I had a few to, spare ones if I need to send them out to people. But I can't recommend enough getting like printing and Blurb. It was no brainer. They always ship sooner than it says. Mm-hmm. By the way, like it's gonna be 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, like 3 days later, it's your thing is printed and it's shipping. So
yeah.
Anyway, really happy. It's like book day. Did you have book day in elementary school? Like
well, I used to get the forms from Scholastic.
Scholastic, right?
Yeah,
okay, good.
Yeah, and then
okay,
and it's kind of poignant because some of the kids that I went to school with didn't have much, and they were like, "Well, I have these $3. What can I get for $3?" And you always knew that the teachers would give a little extra money so they could buy that $8
oh, really? Yeah,
pulp, young, child book or whatever.
That was my favorite. My favorite time was the Scholastic, and you checked the things, and then your mom gave you the money. Like gave me the money, paid them, and then I don't know how many weeks it would take to get the books. But all of a sudden, when the box came in, you knew it was book day, and the teacher would take them out, and there'd be stacks of the same books. Like 10 of these, 20 of these. And it was like when they went around and like looked at your name and then pulled one copy from each of the stacks and then gave them to you. I was like,
now I have the same kind of memories. Yeah. That's very cool.
Which is why I say make your own books. And by the way, you guys, you and some of our other unusual collective newbies, we have a couple of new people in our unusual collective, are costing me money with buying books.
Well, let's
talk about the book you got. I've been talking enough. Let's talk about what you got. So just bring that up.
I got a book by Lee Friedlander called The Workers. It's called The Workers. Part of a series of books that Steidl Publishing is creating called The Human Clay. I think this is the 5th book in that series. And
it's a series? I didn't know that.
I believe it's a series, yeah. And it's pictures that Lee Friedlander took of people at work in various different, everything from the 40s up to, I think the latest image I saw was 2014, 2015. It's people on the street or on the highway or wherever, and it's hard to describe. It's anything you could imagine, people working in labor or sitting by the side of the road with a stop sign stopping traffic from going across a bridge to people laboring out in the fields with oxen, which is the cover picture. It's fantastic. And the thing about Steidl Publishing is their quality. The books themselves are just beautiful artifacts on their own. They're a precious thing when you get them. And then just the way they apply ink to the page. The ink is very thick, and it has a texture to it. And there's this perfume of ink that you get when you open it up for the first time, too. And if you're into the whole book thing, if you're into the cult of books, there's definitely a lot there for you.
Well, I am now.
Yeah. So I would always say, if you have an interest in photo books and you like the kind of product that Steidl Publishing offer, and they're in Germany. You pay for your books in euros, but usually they don't charge shipping, and as you discovered, it's very quick. The shipping that they use, at least the United States and Canada, they use a courier, and it's usually 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And you've got it. So
I mean, I ordered a William Eggleston book, which came in as fast as it would have came in from the States. Mm-hmm. Beautiful quality. It had the smell. Hold on, Opie, go away. I got a cat. He's
wants
keeping.
in.
He's the one keeping me sane while I'm sick. I hope he doesn't get sick. Here you can pass. Opie, no, go away, go away. Sorry, everybody. But I did order 2 more books a couple days ago.
Two more. Okay.
No, only 2 more. Yeah. I ordered the Lee Friedlander book because I'm a copycat.
Okay. Well, you'll be happy with that. It's the Lee. And just before you continue, I'll interject. It's one of those books where the premise is simple, but you'll see something, feel something different every time you go through it, or part of it, whatever. So, I like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any of his books either, so I thought that was a good opportunity. So yeah, I copycatted you, and then I got what's her name, Evelyn
Hofer.
Hofer book, and having remembered you and Bart talking about her on his show, right?
Mm-hmm.
About her book on Dublin, I think.
Dublin, that was coming out this year. I know Bart was waiting for it, and it is in print now.
It's there now. Yeah.
So Bart, if you're listening, order
it now.
Too late.
Yeah.
It's a reprint of a book from 1967. Hofer had done 2 or 3 books where she did the photography, and I've forgotten his name. An Englishman wrote the text, eloquent text to match the pictures to talk about, the subject matter in that time. And so, yeah, Bart, order that baby.
Yeah. So I can't remember the name of the book I got from her, but it's a very, excuse me, it looked like a very comprehensive one. So those are coming tomorrow. Cool. So I know I'm going to do a lockdown in my air conditioning is look at those books. But I mean, speaking of books, we got didn't someone send you a message?
We had a listener send me a message on Instagram, I believe. His name's Gavin. He asked us to consider a future episode with an Australian photographer called Trent Park. And I am a Trent Park fan.
Okay.
And I do have one of his books called Minutes to Midnight, which I bought in like 2015, 2014 from Steidl Publishing again.
Right, which I looked for there.
You looked for it, and what did you find?
I found Bupkis.
No, I think you found it.
No, not on Steidl.
Not there.
Steidl
it's out of print.
It's out of print. I did find it on Amazon for $440 in good condition, and so thank you, Gavin, for sending that suggestion. I need to catch up on my Trent Parkness, and I would love to do a show or an episode about him. So I just need to do some research and whatnot. But you've got the book already, so
I've had the book for years. It's coming up on almost 10 years now. I've had that book. But the thing about Trent Park is I think he came from street photography in Australia. And he moved into kind of this, at least the Minutes to Midnight is kind of a moody, dark, sometimes funny document of it has an Australian feel to it. I don't know how else to put it.
What's
it's
an
like
Australian feel?
It's just somewhere that's not here,
Okay.
It's somewhere that's not North America.
Yeah. And I know what you mean by that, an Australian feel, because I get that. I just wanted you to sort of explain what you think.
Well, it's just not. It's not this. It's not our continent. It's got a different vibe. It's fantastic.
But there's a feeling that it's similar. There's like similarities, especially at like where you are, like the vast, plains of, and then
maybe it's got a Commonwealth country. Maybe there's something Australians and Canadians share some bit of. Culturally, they have some similarities. Australians and Canadians usually get along pretty well.
Yeah. So I didn't know he was Australian. So that's okay. So hold on, Gavin. We'll I like to do that as well.
Yeah.
So
and I should note too. Thank you very much, Gavin, for contacting us. It's what we want. It's content. Ideas for us to have content on the show, and we're happy anytime we get we get some interest and requests from our listenership. I think it's fantastic.
It is, yeah. And Because otherwise we sit here and we just talk about nothing.
We're going to talk about this camera and that camera.
Yeah. So what's up with you? You've got a couple of things going on, so I want to get to that before we hit our other topic.
Yeah, I got a couple of things going on. So all this talk of the zines, and now you've got a book and 2 zines, and all this creativity is happening, and I'm like, well, I should catch up because I keep talking about this book that we did like 6 years ago. It's time to do something else. So I'm planning a trip to visit my mother in Saskatchewan, which is about a 5.5-hour drive. And I was thinking about doing a very loose kind of zine based on my trip home for a week or several days. And I would just go crazy with the camera and shoot anything and everything. Maybe stop by a friend's house on the way home, and things I see along the highway. I mean, it's something I do a couple of times a year. I drive back there, and I've never really documented it. And I know I've seen films with Alex Soth, on the road and all sorts of things. Those are all kind of inspirations. And then to have a zine, I'm imagining it as being really thick, having like 100 or more pages of just anything and everything, color and black and white and dynamic stuff. And if I'm visiting my friend and I do portraits of her, if I did portraits, then there could be a little centerpiece. And they're like just anything that I can think of. And just
not a travel log, but a ward log.
A ward log, yeah. So yeah, there won't be much text at all, if at all. It'll just be, maybe there'll be chapters based on where I visited my friend or whatever, the highway between this town and that town. I don't know. It depends. The pictures themselves will probably lead me into whatever the magazine is supposed to look like.
Is this in the same area where you visited your old house, or is that someplace else?
Well, that was kind of a destination thing. That was like revisiting whatever.
No, but I mean, like in the same location. Is your old house
yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Well, my mother lives in town now. She doesn't live out in the country. But, I will probably be driving out in the country of places that are familiar to me outside of town. And I'll be I think I have plans to visit at least one friend out there, and maybe take a picture around his farm, whatever. Just anything that occurs to me, and I think it'll create an interesting. I want it to feel like a whirlwind kind of, driving this whatever this is.
It sounds very spontaneous.
Yeah, well, I want the zine to feel spontaneous too.
Or even you're planning, because you just came up with this so recently, and this sounds like something like someone who was going to do a photo project, and like it would take, many months to figure out, do this, and this is just like,
because the discipline, many months would be a lot of discipline and making it hard by doing this thing and that thing and that thing, and this is not going to be that. This is going to be whatever occurs to me, and create a zine that kind of captures that, I don't know, spontaneity or the quick movement or whatever it becomes.
Don't overthink it too.
I won't overthink it.
Yeah.
So I can't. Well, I can't. I don't know what I'm going to see really.
Right. But even like it just sounds like you're riding this wave, right? And like continue to ride the wave and go on the trip and make the pictures and make the zine and don't get too much of your thinking brain involved in it. It sounds it's more of like an instinct part of you, like do this and
absolutely. And the thing is, I tend to trust my instincts on those sorts of things, and like I always say, what's the worst that can happen? You take more sucky pictures, and I can do that standing on my head. So
right, and you're going to print
what's
a zine,
the risk?
so you'll see it, you'll see the results. Is this something that you're just going to do for yourself, or you're going to make it available?
Oh, and I'll try. I mean, if it's, I think that there'll be some. I think there'll be some interest.
Yeah, great.
In it. Yeah.
All right.
No, if I have enough pictures and it's the volume that I would want it to be, then certainly I'd make it available.
All right, cool.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to this. Yeah.
So that's one thing.
That's one thing, and what's the other?
The other thing is I've been invited by the Camera Store here in Calgary to do a talk on the process of creating a photo book.
Really?
Yep.
Now, how did that happen?
How did that happen? It happened
It's just
when I went to a meetup. Ted Forbes, a YouTuber, came to the Camera Store, and I visited and met Ted, and we went out for beers after, a group of us that came for the meetup, and we're just talking about various things, and Evelyn Drake, who's one of the hosts of the Camera Store TV. Her husband is Jordan Drake, who works for Petapixel. They do the videos with the Chris and Jordan show that's going on at Petapixel. Anyway, she remembered me from the old Beers and Cameras days from a few years ago, and you're an OG, Beers and Cameras person. So, and she's like, we were thinking that we'd have you and do a talk about your photo book. And sure. So
Really?
I'm going to be doing that.
How did she already knew about the photo book because you have it there?
Because they
the
sell
store?
it in the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and it's
So it's cool. You actually going to this triggered her memory of the book in the store,
Yeah.
and then wow, okay, so it was worthwhile going,
Yeah.
obviously.
So it's an hour-long talk on a Saturday morning when I'm usually sleeping.
What's the day when it?
It'll be
why don't
in
you pass
August.
over?
It's August 12th. It's at
Okay.
9:30 a.m. at the Camera Store in Calgary. And I would invite anyone to come along.
They have a space there. For
They
this?
have. It's sort of before the store opens. I think the store really opens at 9:00 or 9:30 anyway on Saturdays. So there's a seated area that's in between the retail area and where the bookstore, the book section is. There's enough room for a few people there.
Do you know if they're
Set up
going to
chairs and
record?
everything.
If they're going to record it?
I don't know that they will, because it's not sponsored by a camera company usually, or very often. They'll have photographers come, and they're sponsored by Canon or Nikon and that sort of thing. But
Not to put you on the spot or anything like that, but if there's a way to audio record it and we can put some of it on the show, if you ask them.
I'll ask. I'm going to this Saturday.
Be nice.
I'm going to another Saturday morning thing at the same time this weekend.
Ah, okay. Cool.
Nature photographer, outdoor photographer Dave Brocha is going to be there, and I'm visiting one of my another Beers and Cameras friend. We're going to watch, sit and enjoy his presentation, and if Evelyn is there, I'll certainly ask if there's
You don't
a
be
possibility
pushy.
of
Just
doing a
if
recording.
it comes up,
Yeah. All right. I'll
It's
do that.
great to it's cool to share that info. But anyway, if anybody's in the area, go see Ward.
Yeah.
August
August 12th,
August 12th, 9:30
9:30 a.m. Mountain Time.
at the Camera Store.
Yeah.
And if I wish I could be there. That's why there's part of me that I want to hear what you're going to talk about. So
There'll
that's
be
why-
laughter and tears and suspense.
I know, but it's exciting that you're that they're coming to you and talking about this project that you did, and they're interested in it. So,
Yeah. I
that
am
was
too.
really cool. Yeah,
So
fabulous. So that's all the parish news there is.
yeah. That's the parish notices.
The
Yes,
parish notices. Okay.
the parish notices. Yeah, we can start singing the hymns now.
The hymns. Well, what about the hers? No. Sorry, that was bad.
Wow.
I chalk it up to just bad drugs right now.
All right.
I have
Well, we'll
that
let that one
excuse.
slide. Dear listener, please disregard the last
Yeah,
statement
please.
of our
Don't
host.
don't pay attention to this. You can hang up now. You guys can. We're done. What crossed my mind to talk about a little bit, and we're already halfway in the show, so I don't want to talk too much about it. We haven't really talked about composition in a long time. And why do I want us to talk about that? Because this past week, I teach multiple classes, photography classes, and they're all for beginners. And they're all one-off classes. And I've got there's this part of me that wants to really people want to take better pictures. I want to take. They're all kind of trying to figure out their cameras and stuff like that. And I end up spending a lot of time showing them other people's photographs because I said, part of what I want to do is rewire your eyes, because you're so used to seeing stuff that, it's time to see good pictures. I say Instagram, and again, no disrespect to Instagram, but I say Instagram is not the bastion of good photography. You need to, there's good pictures on there, but you're looking at it for a second and a half at 2-inch square, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so like if I had my way, I would love to just do a class on composition, because that's the kind of thing. It's like, you want to take better pictures. It doesn't matter what camera you're using. You can, if you've got your iPhone, you can take better pictures. And I actually started incorporating composition, or a quick talk of composition in my iPhone class. I do a smartphone photography class, and that's just people who want to learn, how do I use my phone and take a picture, and I want to instill a little bit of photographer chops in there. So anyway, composition has been sort of rolling around in my mind. And then just recently, there's a recent video by Alex Kilby, and he just did an episode about composition. And he was funny about that when I was watching, and he was making a few talking points that I almost say verbatim to my students. Right. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was really funny was he's talked about people seeing the world. He was talking about viewpoint, and most people take pictures at they're 5'9", right. and I do the same thing. I say, when we're walking around, you take pictures, between 5'9" and 6'2", horizontal, right? That's how everybody sees the world. And when I heard him say that, I'm like, okay, well, we're kind of talking the same thing, and this is sort of the practical thing. So anyway, composition is sort of kind of in my mind a little bit more these days, especially as an instructor. And so I wanted to just sort of hash it out a little bit with you.
Sure. Just
because it's a fun topic.
And we come at it from different angles too, right? How we learned about composition.
Yeah, we do. We were just mentioning that before we went live, but I went to school for photography, so I had to learn composition, or whatever they were calling it then. I don't know if it was composition, but I had to learn it in a certain regimented way.
Right.
And you were
not. I was not. And so it explains the many years of total garbage I was creating. No, I wouldn't. It was more, no, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, I know.
It was just photographing was just source material for the darkroom. And I really enjoyed the process of photography as much or more than the creative act of shooting. I looked at these pictures in the books that I had when I was a kid, and and asking myself the question, what is it about this picture that makes it so good? Why do people agree that these pictures are so good? Well, because I can see the person's face, and there's this light part here and this dark part here, and the shape of the person or the shape of the subject is very interesting. And so it kind of came to me, I think, much more slowly than if I had somebody explain it to me or in some kind of course material.
Perhaps. I was thinking when I went to high school for photography, and for me, high school was 3 years. Mm-hmm. And my last 2 years, so my junior and senior years in college, I had studio. Mm-hmm. And any of the studio stuff that we shot, or the projects that we had to do for the class, we mostly did with 4x5 cameras.
Right.
And so I had to learn to compose. If you'd never used a 4x5 film camera before, when you're setting it up and you're looking through the back, which is called the ground glass, anything that you're looking at in front of the camera is reversed and upside down. Mm-hmm. On the
you used a shroud and everything. Use a blanket over.
We used a blanket and everything. Yeah, these cameras were they were. I would say they were. How would I describe them? But I would say blue collar 4x5 cameras. Okay. That's the only way I could describe it. Cool. In a sense, they would be the kind of camera you would be setting up in a, if you were a photographer at a factory and you had to record things just because they needed things recorded. This is the kind of camera you would have. This is not it wasn't a photographer's camera. It's what we would have in school. It's like they take a beating, But we had to learn how to set things up by looking at the ground glass of everything being reversed, so mirror image, and then upside down. And that was a very interesting way to learn. That was kind of the first way I learned about composition. But yeah, as I slowly went through those years in college and photo history and understanding stuff and having things sort of shown to me and sort of explained slowly and gaining it through almost like osmosis, I would say. But yeah, it's a much different, trajectory than you have. And it's one of the things that I think that is lacking in a lot of people who are trying to learn photography now. I mean, it's something that they can drop onto YouTube and watch an Alex Kilby video or whoever, but you're not going to get the. It's okay to watch these things, but you're not going to absorb it in a 15-minute, episode of someone's show. And this is not for any disrespect for any of these things. I love these shows, and I'm glad they're doing these. Glad these are available. But it's one of those things that it's like I think it's a lifetime kind of.
Absolutely.
Like you want to keep learning it, or learning about it, or how to even manage it. So anyway, I'm not sure what I wanted to talk about it, but I was very, very strongly feeling this thing of composition. And like one of the examples I do is I show the students a sampling of pictures. I say, you want to become a better photographer, look at other photographers' works. And
that's where I come in. That's what I did. I didn't even really want to learn. I wanted to understand. It was it's different. It was sort of like I didn't really have this hunger for to be artistic necessarily.
Right.
It was just like the kind of course, like what is this? It was a little bit different. It was kind of peculiar, actually.
Well, it almost sounds like with you didn't have anybody to answer the question. Like you were saying, why is this? Why do people like this image? Why is it popular? Whatnot? There was nobody to respond to you about that, and so you had to figure that out. I don't know if I ever had that. I mean, I had teachers. I don't know if I ever asked that question specifically, but they were there for that, or even to look at my own work and say, what's working in this picture and what's not working. And so, I can't point to a specific example of this person at a time of this picture and whatnot. I just imagine this happened over time for the years that I ended up being there. And then for me also, composition ended up playing a sort of a pivotal role when I moved into shooting or working at the stock agency, because there's certain practical things about composition for creating commercial photography, right? You get a space for type and verticals for covers and double page spreads, and where do people put, so there's things you have to sort of pay attention to. But what one image that I put up in our show notes, which is, I'm obviously a big Irving Penn lover, fanboy. But there's this image of Salvador Dali that he put in one of his corners.
Right.
And so Dali's, his legs are akimbo, and he's got his arms, out on his legs, on his knees. And, he's wearing it's a black and white image, and the background is sort of a light gray, and Dali's wearing a dark suit, whether it's dark blue or black, you can't tell because it's a black and white image. It's a sepia image, but to me, it's like when I think about composition, it's this picture. It's also the Arnold Newman picture of Igor Stravinsky. Stravinsky? Yeah. Stravinsky, yeah. Of him leaning on the piano, and the piano being cropped in a certain way. And for some reason, these are the two pictures, like when someone says composition, that's what comes to my mind. Like, to me, like ultimate.
Well, the joke with the Stravinsky picture is the lid for the grand pianos and the B-shaped, which is like symbol for a flat on musical notation, right? So a musician will look at that and go, "Oh, cute! He's a musician," and there's like a flat, there's a flat kind of symbol there. So that's cool. Those two pictures are the kinds where, Kilby talked about this in his video, like when you want to, if you
you want to sort of work on your composition, looking at subjects, maybe squint your eyes, defocus the camera, blur your eyes or something like that. And does it work? Do the images work, or the subject that you're looking at work when you see it without it being in focus? And for some reason, these two images are those kind of things that I could see. Like if I was blurring my eyes or defocusing my camera, that the composition would work so well. What's really funny about these two pictures is that there's no rules of composition that I could tell in either of them, other than maybe the Salvador Dali picture being a little bit more balanced and symmetrical, the symmetry. But
there's some mirroring going on with the Stravinsky picture, his pose and the shape of the lid of the.
There is in him being small compared to the piano, but and the Dali picture to me is like it's very much of a triangle shape, what he's created with his body, even though his arms are sticking out. There's this very sort of mountainous shape thing. But I show this to the students and I say, look, you can do these kind of images with any camera that you have. It doesn't have to be some fancy thing, or you could shoot the stuff with your iPhone or things like this, not this picture specifically, but you could do this. It has nothing to do with the equipment that you have. It's just how are you going to see a picture? How are you going to view it? How are you going to put it in the frame? And of course, because I'm teaching a class, I have to talk about the rule of thirds, which makes me want to go. It just makes me crazy. Because it's something that I always say, well, look, you're going to encounter this phrase further on in your education, the rule of thirds. And I try to tell them it's a guideline and start there if you don't know where to do things. I try to temper it down and stuff like that.
Right.
But anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I don't know if you've got something to add or.
Well, no, I think, talk about our differences of how we approached it. Composition is the linchpin for a photograph. If you don't have composition, you really don't have anything. It's one of those things, especially where it's like in movie direction or music, or whatever, there are conventions to this particular creative pursuit. You learn them, you understand them, and then you find a way through your own creativity to break those rules. And I think composition is certainly the biggest, how do I put it? The biggest concept that you grapple with as you're working.
It's kind of the first. It's funny. It's such a weird concept to talk about composition, but it's the first thing that when you're looking at a picture that resonates with you. I think it's because there's something in the composition that's connecting, or like the photographer put the subjects in the picture in the right way that then you can understand, connect, and resonate with, and therefore you have got some sort of dialogue going on with the subject or the photographer, and it's all because it's composition. If there isn't a good composition, then you have no way to relate to the image or the photographer or the subject, and you may still like the picture, it still may be an okay picture, but you've got I use this phrase over and over again for different things, but it's almost like empty calories. It's like you look at it and move on, and I think maybe that's kind of what I like to talk about when I'm saying Instagram is not the bastion of great photography, because you're going to see a lot of pictures where there's no connection between you and the person who's creating the image. You still might like it, but you're not enthralled by it. You're not pulled into the picture.
No, that's true. And well, one thing I would say in favor of Instagram is the preponderance of square format photos. Growing up, if I was shooting with my twin lens reflex, I found it very difficult to come up with interesting square compositions. And so, because of it's not looking at, it's like Ralph Gibson talks about horizontal being two eyes and vertical being one eye. what is square? So I don't know. And square, I found it, I used to tilt and do Dutch angles and weird tilty stuff. I found I could never do that with the square format. I had to, make the trees go up and the horizon go level, because a square image, the off horizon looks just terrible.
Squares are interesting to work with, and to go back against Instagram now. The thing is that Instagram is imposing that square on you.
That's true.
Like that was, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on Instagram here, but they're a tool or a marketing tool. They're to get eyes on subject, and they're forcing everybody to, or at least when it was first around, started to look at everything in a square format, because that was the way.
That was what they offered.
That was the format, So that was so people didn't necessarily. I mean, this is maybe another episode about aspect ratios, which I actually would love to talk about in some way. There's some crossover here, but so that's sort of against it. And people don't, the education people don't know this, and I like to pull them away from it a little bit, since it's really kind of difficult to see people that their world in photography is a 2-inch screen that they look at for a second and a half. Actually, one of the things I like to say to them, I go, so when you go to a museum, do you start at one painting and then start running down the hallway looking at each one at like a second and a half? And they look at me, I said, well, that's what you're doing on Instagram or any social media, is like you're scrolling. And anyway, that was just, I wanted to remember that. But, and so like, I don't know if composition is something that can be taught.
Oh, I think so. I think
you think it can be taught?
Well, the initial steps, right? And the hope is, just like with anything creative or something that doesn't seem technical, that really is, that requires a technique, you get them off. You got to start with rule of thirds. There are lots of compositions where you have your 3-year-old kid standing on the lawn by themselves, screaming or whatever, and you take a picture of it with your Instagram, or we take a picture of your little kid all by himself, dead in the middle of the frame, like just
right,
way too far away. Like you're not getting anything other than this tiny person, and apparently is an angry expression, and lawn and house and stuff, of this horrible vernacular picture that no one is not going to attract anybody's interest. So what if you got closer, have your kid, fill the frame mostly, and if he's still upset, you have, his head up and to the left or whatever, and you start thinking about not just the experience of being there, but transforming your experience of being there into an image that can stand on its own. And I think that's the biggest, and it's not just for compositions, for anyone who's learning photography, to stop for a second and imagine instead of being there in the moment, you're standing there with a photograph, and it's that photograph that you're just about to take, which you're imagining holding in your hand right now, is that a picture you want to keep, that you want to put in your wallet or hang up on the wall? And composition is going to get you there. Starting to think about composition is going to get you there sooner.
Composition almost sounds like, to paraphrase Kilby, is like it's the anti-snapshot.
Yeah.
I mean, snapshot is all about what the name means. It's like you're literally picking up the camera and taking a picture within, a snap.
Yeah.
And what you're just saying now is okay, well, you can do that. And I always think that if you have that moment, you grab the snapshot, because if you miss something, you don't have time to compose it or think about it, as you're saying, which is more a better way to approach this. At least you've got the image, right? You snapshot it, so you've got the image, but then you take your time, you pay more attention, you start thinking about what it is about the subject, and then move around. But when I say I don't know, it's like, if it can be taught, it has to be taught over a lengthy period of time. It is not, I don't think it's something that, even when I do my short period of class and I show a few, pictures from my favorite photographers of compositions that I think. I mean, I think all the photographers I show have great composed work because they're great photographers. So they're naturally well composed images, but that people are not going to quite get that in their first, class on photography, and how to get them more excited into paying attention to the photograph like you're describing,
Right.
to spend more time with looking at the subject. And to me, that's like, forget your camera. Who gives a crap what camera you have at this point? Like, for Pete's sakes, just pick up your phone, and your phone is, if anything, it eliminates all the technical BS.
Right.
It allows you then to just focus on the subject, right? Which you can then spend time working on.
Right.
But I just don't see how. I mean, I don't want to say I don't see how, but it seems like it's a long process for someone to then spend time to understand composition. Obviously, it took you some time.
It took some time, but now I can be one of those guys that could help somebody with it. And the metaphor I always use is the one that I just presented, which was you're standing there with the photograph you have in your hand. Like, is that a photograph you think would be interesting, not just for yourself to see, but for others to see? And you're in the moment, you're making that decision now. Start thinking about the way you want it to look. And I think, if you have to wrap a language around photography, which I don't like to do. Well, you've been walking in the street with me, right? I'm trying not to use words to describe what it is I'm doing, but it's in the beginning. You have to say, okay, I'm in this moment here. I have this person in front of me. I have this situation. I have this building. How am I going to capture it? And you have to start thinking, what's the first thing that goes through your mind when you're trying to make a pleasing photograph, and that is the composition. If you don't have any other controls on the camera to worry about, like if you're on your phone. I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
But you don't want to send people out without some encouragement.
Well,
Obviously
I'm
going to teach you this, but it's going to take you months to figure it out.
No, we have only 3 hours, and so you got to get something out of this. And it's actually kind of it's encouraging. Every now and then I'll get an email from. Actually, in this last class, I got an email from somebody who asked me to clarify some names of the photographers who I mentioned. And some of the spellings were wrong. They're a little phonetical.
Okay.
And maybe because I don't
memory of the class
of what I said, and it didn't, maybe didn't speak so clearly. It was great because I was reading the names. I was like, oh, that's Irving Penn.
Okay.
And it was encouraging to have a student come back to me on that, because then it was like, okay, well, someone's going to then investigate, more of someone else's work and stuff like that. And so in a sense, I was the curator of that. But this it's going back to like when I was in this meeting last night. It's like, like if we could we actually do a class? I didn't bring this up, but it's like, could we just do a class on composition?
Right.
If you were doing a class on composition, it would help photographers. It would help filmmakers, because there's a lot of crossover. There's equal amount of, even though film tends to be a more horizontal aspect, there is still a lot of that room for both. And there's a lot of photographers who are filmmakers, and filmmakers are photographers, so it crosses over. But it all worked. The classes all seem to be more bent on the practical part of it, which to me is it's almost the wrong way to go.
Right.
If you want to produce good content, if you want students to create great imagery or great films and stuff like that, they need to know how to make it look good. And like I said, you could do a whole film you could do a movie on your iPhone. It doesn't, again, the equipment doesn't matter. And so just having that energy and time to want to spend, with looking at and exploring and understanding composition. When we were talking about, I don't know if we ever even did an episode on Eggleston. And to me, his compositions are incredibly complex. It's like it's a more nuanced kind of, and like I still have to figure out, spend time and learn.
Like when I was talking about the Friedlander book, the more you look, the more there is to see. And a part of what I'm going to be talking about in the talk about about our photo book is you bring your own biases and interests and passions and personality into the material you're looking at. What's great about Eggleston and some of his compositions, or many of his compositions, maybe even most of them, is there's a lot of layers. Now this is separate from the layers of composition and layers, the practical visual version of it. But there's a lot of where you bring your own personality and you're looking at some of what's in the images going, is that what I think it is? And there's some kind of dark meaning that you get, or some dark, some of the objects that are in his images, and thinking of garbage and things like that are like, why is he photographing this? It's kind of weighty what he's doing, and disturbing in a lot of ways, and that's kind of amazing. It's just a photograph.
Yeah, and that's what other people, I would say other people, but people who are just learning for the first time, and I would show them an Eggleston picture or even like a Herzog picture, and they're like, well, what's so special about this? Like, why are you showing this? And I'll even say to them, what's so special? Why am I showing these pictures? And there might be a little bit, jumping the gun there for them. Like, it's a little bit too much, because I'm still trying to figure out like Eggleston and stuff like that. It's not so easy to totally understand the compositions, and you have to spend more time with it.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting to be in this sort of place where, like, I think I know what good composition is, and trying to explain it to other people who are new, or just learning for the first time, or even really sometimes to try to explain it to myself. Like, what is it about an image that is drawing me in, and what is it about the composition? These are ongoing questions that I like to. I don't know. It's something about it still draws me in about photography, and it's not just photography. I mean, it's also it's almost any artwork where composition is an important part of it. And not to beat a dead horse, but this is where I really get stuck with a lot of the AI stuff, because there's very little thought in the composition of images that are coming out of a computer. Sometimes, but. Sorry, I didn't want to go on a little sidekick for a second, but I noticed that that's one of the things that doesn't draw me in, is that there's the composition of images that are not created by a human being. They don't. I don't know. There's some disconnect there.
Right. I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, I had.
It's not all of it.
No, because I was thinking my brief flirtation with Midjourney AI. I thought some of the compositions were actually not bad. If I was mentioning, for instance, a movie or something as part of the context in the prompt, typically, of what I remember, the pictures were pretty cinematic.
Yes, there is that, but there's no. Maybe I approached this the wrong way. It's mimicry.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So whereas, like, one of the pictures of yours that the composition is, I find striking, is, and we talked about this a long time ago, and I don't know where he shot it, but there's a guy at the bottom, he's cut off, and then these wires at the top,
right. Zip,
and then a part of a building.
Name of the picture. Yeah.
And I think we talked about it in our episode about edges.
Yeah.
Because you had all this stuff along the edges, right? That's something, and again, I want to end this about AI, so I don't want to go to this far, but that's something that AI won't do. Like, it will mimic that, like a Wes Anderson style, or a Pete Turner style, or whatever. It'll do mimicry, but it doesn't have the ability to do what you did, is looking at a subject and coming up, or looking at a scene and composing it in, let's say a novel way, or something that is where you're trying to tell a story. So
Right.
that's the only thing. I mean, I see great images that come out of Midjourney, and they look like Wes Anderson films or Stanley Kubrick films, and they're appealing to me because of that. But I just realize it's just mimicking somebody else's compositional style. So there was something I wanted to mention, but I totally forgot about this subject, and I lost it. So this is what happens. This is the brain fog of COVID. This was sort of a no kind of special kind of conversation. I mean, I would like to continue this in some other way as well. We've been talking for a while, but do you have any like final thoughts about this? These thoughts about composition, because I'm having a hard time coming up with a final
Well,
thought.
no, I think it's the first thing. If you're new, it's the first thing you should learn.
And
if
what's the best way to learn? What do you think is a good way to learn? I mean, other than like you're not going to grab a 4x5 camera like me and turn everything upside down and backwards, which is a great way to learn composition. Since that's not the way to do it, what's going to be good?
That's kind of interesting. Well, basically, you're teaching someone how to chimp. So you take the picture and you look at it, and does it balance? Does it have interest?
Does it work both directions, upside down?
Well, yeah, turn the camera upside down.
Turn the camera upside down.
Although the phone won't let me do that, it keeps turning it around.
That's true. Yeah, but
yeah, it's just I haven't taught as many folks of the photography end of things as you have, but yeah, that would be the first thing I would teach. You'd show some examples, which is what you've done, and that's basically it. And I always go back to is this a photograph that you're standing here holding? Is it one that you would want to have?
And that's probably a good class to teach. Would be a good class to teach.
Oh,
composition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can actually do a full class on composition. I wonder if that's actually like something that can be done over like a few weeks or something like that. That's worth trying. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, there's all different directions you can go for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's put a bookmark on this because I would like to come back to it. I'm sure we'll come back to it with different photographers and stuff. But yeah, I would definitely watch that Kilby video. I love the way he approaches this idea of composition. I really appreciate the kind of work he's doing for the.
And I don't think there's anybody that's doing it the way he is either.
I don't think so either. And the way he approaches it. So yeah, subscribe to his. I'll subscribe to his channel. I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can see the video we were talking about. But yeah, composition. It's it's more than just a notebook. Right?
Yes.
And sorry, I got a cat who wants to join me. So let me see if I can come up here so he doesn't scratch me. Nope. All right, that's it. I think I'm done for the night. I'm already loopy.
All right.
I'll
let you go.
Where? Yeah, let me go. Where are we going to find you in the world?
On Vero and Twitter, you can find me at WRosinPhoto. On Instagram, you can find me at Ward Rosin Fine Art. On Facebook, I'm at Ward Rosin Photo or Ward Rosin Photography. You'll certainly find me there. I have a little website called rosin.ca, rosin.ca, which is really not much there now that the book is sold out, which maybe you'll be able to rectify that in a while, but right now we're out. But I sell my fine prints there. And I have this little business called Ornis Photo, which is our unofficial sponsor.
Unofficial sponsor.
Where I sell lens adapters, older lens mounts on newer cameras, the Fuji X and Sony E mount. And that's about it. That's about it for me. What about you, Antonio? Where can we find you?
Vero, excuse me, Vero, Twitter, unfortunately, and Flickr is at AM Rosario. Don't get me started about Twitter. What's going on there? Website is amrosario.com and Facebook, Rosario Photo. Our website is streetshots.photography, and our Facebook page is facebook.com/streetshots podcast. And, we're starting to get some messages in, so I really like that. If you want to leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/streetshots, you can leave us a 90-second little voicemail if you want to ask questions. Please, we'd love to hear from you guys. And if you want to help support the show, actually, some of these days I'm going to put up links to our zines. That would be one way to support the show when I get the links up. But right now, if you want to buy us a coffee, you can buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario. We don't have an account there, so you can use my name, but that would help support the show. But anyway, maybe I'll put the zines up as a way to support. When you get yours up, we'll put them up and get people to support us. But anyway, so when we do the next show, you'll be able to tell us about what? Your trip.
Yeah, about my trip to visit my mother, and maybe the nerves will start to get to me for the talk at the campus.
Oh, you'll be fine.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah,
you're doing this. You're talking to how many people here?
One and a cat.
The only difference is you'll see them in person.
I don't have a problem with public speaking.
There you go. Of course you don't. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, even though I don't feel so great. And I hope we made it through the show okay.
I think so too.
Yeah. Nobody hung up on us, right?
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and have a good night, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.